Thank you for being here today at this press briefing regarding criminal activity within the Greater Burlington area. I'm Jason Hutchison with the Greater Burlington Partnership, and I'll be joined by a few others this morning. 1 year ago, a group of business leaders and members of the community convened out of a sense of urgency regarding the level of violent crime occurring in the area. A report containing a summary of findings was released, which noted 11 items worthy of discussion and further examination. It was never the intent of the group for the report to be the comprehensive blueprint for a reduction of crime, as there is no magic formula, but rather the group hoped to draw attention to a number of items. Earlier this year, the group expanded and reconvened to take another look at some of the report's findings and suggest some additional next steps. As a quick recap, the summary of findings were broken into three categories from a year ago: violence prevention, deterrence, and the justice system. And the components of those categories are reprinted in the handout that's on the back table, if we could circulate those. With regard to violence prevention, there are major societal challenges that will be difficult to overcome. However, we have seen expanded discussion about poverty led by Vern Reed in the Bridges Out of Poverty program. It is seeing success. Concerns regarding the lack of appropriate mental health options have made their way into the mainstream conversations and policy discussions. And while we are not yet satisfied with the progress there, it is no longer a problem that can be ignored. The City of Burlington is launching a Healthy Neighborhoods program to improve our neighborhoods most in need, and our educational institutions are doing more and more every day to connect with families and improve educational outcomes for children and adults alike. And there are many more groups like the ones mentioned doing terrific things in our community, and they can all use additional financial support. With regards to the justice system, there have been a number of high-profile convictions locally, some with the assistance of state and federal prosecutors. Relationships with these offices are growing stronger, and we are seeing the cooperation extend beyond isolated cases. With regards to deterrence, we are pleased to have Chief Beard join us one last time before he retires to discuss some of the recent efforts of the Burlington Police Department as it relates to the POP unit and the Council's approval of 2 officer positions 1 year ago. Chief Beard.
Thank you, Jason. Good morning, everyone. As Jason commented, the police department was asked to be part of this task force, and in a way that we could reduce violent crime, reduce gun violence in the community. And with that, the question was posed to me: do you need more officers? Do you have enough officers? And I answered that question twofold. At the time, we had 41 officers. And could we police? Yes. Could we proactively police? No. When you have 4 guys, 5 at times, working the streets, 33,000 calls for service, that's what happens. You answer call after call after call, and you don't have time to spend the time in the neighborhoods where some of this violence is taking place. So with that said, we applied for a COPS grant. Very fortunately, we were awarded that grant that supplied 2 officers to the police department for a total of $250,000. It was a 75-25 program, 75 federal funded, 25% local funded, and we're still under that program. And that program is due to end in August, but with the hiring process and the delay in the hiring process, I'm confident we'll receive a 6-month extension to take us into 2019. So with that said, we added 2 officers to that program. We put together a 3-year staffing proposal that came from this task force. And I was blessed to be able to work with community leaders, business leaders, the partnership, to provide me with the support, the community support necessary to put on 2 additional police officers to the Burlington Police Department. So we did that. We put together a proposal based on statistical data and the real need in the community to reduce this violent crime. So with that, we got to a total of 45 officers. Now keep in mind that 45th officer is just now getting ready to come out of the program and start solo patrol. So we got to back up a little bit to the COPS grant, and we formed a problem-oriented policing unit, or a POP unit. And with that unit, I want to talk a little bit statistically what they've accomplished since we put this task force together and come up with this plan as a community. How are we going to reduce this gun violence? So for 2017, they made 79 misdemeanor warrant arrests, 37 felony warrant arrests, A total of misdemeanor arrests that are not warrants, 106. In other words, on site. These are active cases that they're working. And their on-site felony arrests were as well 37. And traffic citations 8. But more importantly, the weapons seized, this two-man unit seized 23 pistols, 4 shotguns, 5 rifles, and 5 illegal knives. And they also seized numerous drugs, including and not limited to marijuana, methamphetamine, cocaine, crack cocaine, and a limited amount of heroin. So with those efforts, it's important that we note that the Burlington Police Department also in 2017 seized a total of 133 guns unlawfully. And not all of those came from traffic stops. Some of those are search warrants that involve drugs or situations where people are no longer authorized to have firearms. So it's a broad spectrum, and I don't know the exact numbers, but I can attest to say several of those guns came from traffic stops, people transporting unlawful firearms that are loaded, and also search warrants where narcotics were located. So let's talk about results a little bit and the impact that we're starting to see. Scientifically, statistically, how do you look at this? And we thought, well, gun violence, that's our target. So shots fired calls, let's take a look at that. And 2 years ago, we specifically set out criteria that if it comes in as a shots fired call, we want evidence, we want data to prove that a shot was fired. A shell casing or casings, a bullet maybe or bullets, or enough witnesses that all had the same story that we're convinced some shots were fired. So with that said, in 2015, we had 46 shots fired calls and 26 arrests for carrying unlawful weapons. In 2016, we had 37 arrests for carrying unlawful weapons and 74 shots fired call. Since the implementation of the POP unit in the plan for 2017, there has become a drastic change, a change for the better, a trend that this is headed in the right direction. We had 83 charges for carrying unlawful weapons and 59 shots fired call. So statistically, there's no question that this unit that can proactively police is making a difference in the community. So with that said, I'm going to turn this over to Jerry Sherwood.
Thanks, Doug. As you heard from Jason and Chief Beard, there is some good work happening throughout the community. Our group reconvened to see if there were practical next steps that could be suggested to continue the pressure against criminal activity. There are 4, which I will outline, and then I will turn it over to Amy Burkhart to discuss some messaging components. 1, we encourage the installation of private security cameras at businesses and private residences. These systems can be purchased relatively inexpensive, yet are incredibly helpful to law enforcement as they work to gather facts about an incident. A couple of tips. Higher quality imagery is best, and the camera should be pointed toward the sidewalk, street, and alley. Do not, and I repeat, do not point cameras at your neighbor's residences or windows, and understand you could be called to testify regarding the authenticity of your video. It is also worthy of clarifying that we are not advocating for expanded use of public cameras operated by a government entity, but rather the installation of private systems on private property. We also, under the second point, encourage the Iowa legislature to enhance penalties under Iowa Code Section 724.4, unlawful carrying of weapons for repeat violations. These are individuals in our community that carry a loaded handgun in their car or on their person without a concealed carry permit. The first offense for doing this is an aggravated misdemeanor. It is also an aggravated misdemeanor if you do it 4, 5, 10, 15 times. A suggestion is to increase the penalty to a Class D felony, which would better equip law enforcement to do its job. Enhancing the penalty in this way is similar to the way OWI penalties increase over time. It is logical to suggest that repeat violations of this statute do not occur out of ignorance of the law, but rather occurrence out of criminal intent. This change does not alter any gun legislation and is simply an enhancement of a penalty for repeat violations. We also encourage continued collaboration with the Southeast Iowa Property Owners Association of Landlords regarding tenant management. Many of the acts of violence in our community have been perpetrated by individuals living in our community in a transient status. In other words, many are not homeowners or lease owners. Couch surfing and other types of living arrangements have proven a challenge for property owners, landlords, and our community. Community conversations regarding neighborhood challenges and continued collaboration with the association regarding tenant management and the eviction process may prove very valuable. This is not an easy topic, but we mention it here as a way of encouraging collaboration. Number 4, bolster the efforts of Crime Stoppers by publishing the photos of wanted persons. Crime Stoppers is a great local program that offers cash rewards for tips leading to an arrest of individuals with outstanding warrants. The cash component is very important motivator, and we applaud the efforts of this group. We would encourage the periodic publishing of photos of individuals with outstanding warrants to increase the utilization of the program and raise awareness of both the program and those wanted individuals. Publishing online seems to be the practical way of doing, and we will encourage that as a starting place. Those are 4 suggestions for some practical steps the community can take on this path to reducing violent crime. There are still a number of overall societal challenges that have not been addressed, but the solutions for those are not short-term. Next, I would like to turn it over to Amy Burkhart to discuss some strategies relative to managing the public awareness.
Thank you, Jerry. Good morning. Every community struggles with the topic of messaging as it relates to violent crime, and the Greater Burlington area is no different. If the police do really good work, as Doug just outlined that they are here in our community, arrests do go up, and some citizens think that if arrests go up, then the community therefore must be unsafe. Highlighting our challenges adds to negative perceptions by the public, yet if we fail to highlight those challenges and address them as community leaders, we are not doing our job. Our group has met, as Jerry discussed, 4 times over the last 2 months and has put together a list of 4 suggestions for improving community perceptions locally and regionally. The first is to work on improving the perceptions that locals have regarding the community. Our group found that visitors to this community often have great things to say about their time here, yet internal negativity tends to be persistent at times, especially as it relates to our neighborhoods and violent crime. There are real community challenges, but many groups are working diligently on these challenges to improve conditions. We encourage the community to engage in sending out more messages about the positive momentum through a variety of media platforms. There are so many great things to discuss, and sometimes they do get overshadowed by the bad. Number 2, create and distribute public service announcements regarding situational awareness. Much of the violent crime in this community is related to a connection between the individuals involved and is not random. However, we know some types of criminal activity is random and opportunistic. There are many things that individuals, including all of you in this room, can do to feel more secure and reduce their odds of victimization. Public awareness campaigns regarding personal safety will be initiated to perhaps reduce the opportunities for criminal behavior. Number 3, launch a digital strategy to balance online commentary. If you go online and search crimes in Burlington, Iowa, you will produce plenty of negative information on our community. Those looking for negative information can find it. We encourage the community to take proactive measures to provide a balance to this negative commentary online and to add perspectives to this type of search. Two approaches to be considered include the optimization of existing content highlighting community success and momentum to drive organic traffic, and secondly, to aggregate new content that acknowledges community challenges while showcasing our efforts to improve. And finally, to initiate a robust marketing campaign to drive consumers to this local region and market. Finally, without question, the Greater Burlington market is the region's hub for retail, commercial, and entertainment activities. Community activities here are unmatched for at least a 75-mile radius. We should have an aggressive and continual marketing effort aimed at driving consumers to Greater Burlington to ensure we are getting the market share of the consumers' spending that our community commands. Visitors love the community when they come here, and top-notch experiences will override any related negative perceptions. A great experience equals a great customer and a repeat customer and a strong, favorable opinion of Greater Burlington. I'd like to thank the members of the media who took time to come here today, along with those in the room that have participated in these group discussions over the last 2 months. As we have consistently noted, there will never be an acceptable level of crime in this community, specifically as it relates to violent crime, and there are no easy solutions. However, there are some practical steps that have been outlined today to improve outcomes for both. With that, we will conclude our remarks and open it up to questions from members of the media.
Thank you, Amy. If there are questions from anyone in the room, we'd be happy to take them.
In the messaging session, you spoke about aggregating new content to balance negative crime stories. What does that actually look like? What do you think you're going to do?
Yeah, and so some of these concepts are ideas where a group that to implement that has not been necessarily identified yet. However, when we do a press event like this, or we produce a report, as we've done, there's risk to that. There's risk that you stir up conversations in the community, and people begin to think that crime perhaps is worse than it is. Yet we feel in the long term it's important for us to acknowledge that there are challenges in the community, and at least let folks know that there are many coordinated efforts to help combat those things. So if a user is looking for information about crime in the community, they're going to find an awful lot of stuff. What they're not finding today in that search, what a typical user would not find today, is an acknowledgement by the community that we know these things are happening, and it's not easily identified what is the community trying to do about that. And so if you're looking at moving here, or you're looking at staying here for an extended period of time, there's not a great balance online right now. So we want to provide some depth to that.
Jason, as a member of the committee the past 2 years, I'd just like to thank the partnership for helping facilitate this discussion. I think as we speak about crime in our community, many people say, well, it's no different than Davenport or other river cities. And I guess from my perspective, I don't want to dismiss it as being something that, we're no worse off than anybody else. I think most of us in this room, recognize this is our community, and we need to do what we can do as a larger community to work with our police entities to do the very best that we can. And to simply pass it off and say, we're no worse than anybody else, doesn't make me feel better. We want our community to be safer, and through the effort of the people that have been involved with this task force and the local governments, we think we can achieve that. And I thank the Chamber or the partnership for helping facilitate this ongoing discussion.
Thank you for those comments.
Well said.
Anything else? All right. Thanks for coming today.